It's Monday. It's that time. Meghan Monday! This is episode 4, and in a minute I'm going to show you a couple of things. Number 1, we had the cutest gender reveal party for my brother and sister-in-law on Halloween night. We did a smoking pumpkin. Actually, I didn't do that part. My brother did all of that. I'm sure my sister-in-law was the creative mastermind behind it. I'm gonna show you some glimpses of our sweet little Halloween gender reveal, and I'm gonna show you the food that we made for the party, and it was all gluten-free. And it got me thinking, some of you may not know that we follow a mostly gluten-free diet. You may not know if it's right for you. You may hear people talking about it a lot. And so I just thought, let me give you my 2 cents, my perspective on how we made the choice for our family and some things you might consider when you're making the choice for you. If you are new here, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Megan Dorman. I am a certified functional nutritional therapy practitioner, say that 4 times fast, and also a certified fitness trainer. I teach women how to break up with diet culture, create a nourishing relationship with food, and build the body and lifestyle that they truly, truly want. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you will know that this Meghan Monday series started as a way for me to update my audience as to how my reverse diet is going. So toward that end, I will tell you that I am still holding steady around 155-ish pounds, working up to 1,900 calories. I've been there for a couple weeks. This upcoming week is where I will go consistently at 2,000 calories. And I will be honest with you, I am struggling with consistency. I am sort of a spontaneous personality. I like to fly by the seat of my pants. I am working on a discipline of having more forethought in my business, my fitness goals, my family, like all the things. And that is just not something that I have ever really truly excelled at naturally. I have to really work at that. So I have not been super consistent in plugging my food in, and there are definitely days where I know I haven't eaten enough food in general and definitely have not eaten enough protein. All in all, still in the neighborhood of 155, still working up my calories, still working up in my training in consistency and volume and intensity. When I'm in the gym, I'm feeling like I am getting better. I'm making progress in both strength and conditioning and muscle endurance. So we're gonna keep on keeping on. Before I get to today's topic on gluten, let me show you our gluten-free spread from the gender reveal party and a few clips, and then you'll get to find out if I'm having a new niece or nephew. Okay, so before I get into a little bit of the science on gluten and whether or not it should be part of your diet, I first want to say that I spent about 10 years eating a mostly paleo diet, very steeped in ancestral health nutrition, the Weston A. Price Association, which promotes a high quality, nutrient dense diet that really eschews all forms of processed food, which would include basically all of today's grains. So because I spent a long period of time on that side of the nutrition sphere and in that school of thought, I went for many, many, many years where I felt bad if I ate anything that had grains in it. I felt like some kind of failure. And that's not paleo's fault. That's not Whole30's fault. That's no one's fault. It's a diet mindset. I was moving through a journey of food freedom, but I had not yet attained it. And so until you can get to that place, you can turn anything into a diet where there are yes foods and no foods and good foods and bad foods. What I teach in my programs and with my clients is to start thinking about things in terms of effective versus less effective towards whatever it is that you want for your life. I just wanted to preface this discussion on gluten with the caveat that I am certainly not about to lay out a case for you that gluten is bad and you are bad if you eat it. There is actually no food that I would say that about. So I just think it's important that whatever decision that you make about what is or is not included in your diet, that it is not made with a good, bad, right, wrong diet culture paradigm mindset, but more, this is what the research says, this is what I have experienced in my own body, this is something that I want to learn more about and see what happens. Effective or less effective is how I would love for us to think about making these decisions with our diets. Okay, so let me first draw the distinction between what we already know, what we're not really sure about, but people are hypothesizing and testing and talking about and writing about and researching, and then what is still kind of like completely experimental. So what we know is that there is in fact a diagnosable disorder called celiac disease. Celiac disease occurs in someone where an immune response is triggered by their body in the presence of them eating gluten. There is no cure for it, there is no medication for it, there is no surgery for it. The only treatment is a 100% gluten-free diet for the rest of your life. So celiac patients absolutely exist. They are clinically diagnosed. There are tests that can determine if you have celiac disease or not. That is something that the medical and nutrition community agrees upon. The stereotypical symptoms or presentation are things like diarrhea, any number of reasons for them to believe that they are not absorbing nutrients, so like anemia, iron deficiency, vitamin B deficiencies, things like that, osteoporosis, anything that would indicate that their body is not absorbing the nutrients from their food properly might cause a physician to order a celiac disease test. If it doesn't, and you experience any of those things, I would ask for one. They often typically will present with fatigue, bloating, diarrhea, unexplained weight loss. Those are kind of the typical presentations. Here's the thing. I think there are a lot of people out there that are undiagnosed celiac because they don't present with those particular symptoms, or their doctor doesn't think to make the correlation. If they only have, like, say, the osteoporosis symptom, but they don't have the bloating, or they don't have the weight loss, or they don't have the diarrhea, if they don't have the acute intestinal symptom that is indicative, textbook, of celiac disease, then the physician might not order the test and the patient might not know to ask for it. So celiac disease is currently diagnosed in about 1 out of every 100 to 200 people in the United States. That's already kind of a lot, and I suspect there are a lot more people out there that are undiagnosed. And so there are some silent celiac patients out there that might have things like chronic and unexplained migraines, depression, anxiety, infertility, miscarriages, tooth decay, stress fractures. Those would fall under the osteoporosis, anemia, like a bucket of symptoms of nutrient malabsorption. Insomnia, bipolar disorder. There are a number of other things that could be going on that neither the patient nor the physician would think to correlate with a gut disorder. It has been relegated to the field of gastroenterology, and I think that is doing a huge disservice to the population because there are so many other ways that your body can manifest having an intolerance to something or even having a full-blown immune response response to it, which is what celiac disease is. And I'm not saying that if you have depression or if you have anxiety or if you have migraines, if you have any one of those symptoms, you probably have celiac disease. I'm certainly not saying that. I am saying those are symptoms that are not frequently correlated that would bring somebody to order a celiac test to see. And I'm saying if I were the patient, if I were experiencing any of those things, I would ask for it. Okay, next we could have a wheat allergy. That is just like you can be allergic to anything. You can be allergic to strawberries. You can be allergic to penicillin. You can be allergic to the proteins in wheat and not test positive for celiac, not have the immune response. You can also have the immune response, be celiac diagnosed or undiagnosed, and not have the allergy response. You can be one or the other. You can be both. And you can be neither. Maybe you've done like a skin test, like a skin prick test with an allergist, and it has come up that you're not actually allergic to the wheat protein. That doesn't mean that you are not having an immune response that could actually maybe be a diagnosable celiac condition. We just don't know without the proper tests. There's separate reactions in the body. The third category I want to talk about is non-celiac gluten sensitivity. When I first started talking about how there are things we know, there are things we agree on in the medical nutrition world, and then there are things that we're still kind of hypothesizing about, researching, not really sure about, and then there are things that are like super new and highly experimental. I would put non-celiac gluten sensitivity in one of the second two buckets. There's definitely some research being done here. There are definitely articles being written about it. There are some clinical trials, certainly some case studies that have popped up in medical journals, but there are still medical doctors and PhD researchers that will suggest to their colleagues or present at a conference that there is such a thing as non-celiac gluten sensitivity, and they will still get laughed off the stage. So it is still not something that people agree on by any means. However, there is an internet full of people that have eliminated gluten and their symptoms have resolved. It's not a double-blind, controlled, randomized clinical trial, which is the gold standard in science. At this point, it's anecdotal, which is why sometimes those researchers that are trying to make it a more legitimized field of study, which is why they sometimes are laughed off the stage or shunned by their colleagues, because there's not a lot of data on it yet. But when you have thousands and thousands and thousands of people saying, look, I took it out and I feel better, like all kinds of stuff, like everything I mentioned, from depression, anxiety, neurological symptoms, especially in children. And that's why the gluten-free, casein-free diet is such a big deal in the autism spectrum world, because a lot of times kids get better when they take those foods out of their diet. Not always, but a lot. Enough that it should tell us that we need to be looking at this. People have conceived after years of not being able to get and continue a pregnancy. I'll post a link in the description to a TED Talk by Dr. Rodney Ford out of New Zealand. He's a medical doctor, an MD, a pediatrician, a gastroenterologist, and an allergist. And in the TED Talk, he talks about how the thousands of children that have come into his pediatric gastroenterology practice all had already previously tested negative for celiac disease and were still symptomatic, and so get sent to him, hey, these kids are not celiac, but something is still up with them. You need to figure it out. He puts them on a gluten-free diet, and out of the thousands of children that he works with, 80% of them go into remission or the symptoms clear up. That's anecdotal, but it's powerful. It's powerful enough for us to sit up and listen, in my opinion. So we may not have celiac disease in my family. We may not have a wheat allergy in my family. I don't even know if we have any symptoms that would be strong enough for me to say that we are classified as non-celiac gluten sensitive. I can't say that anything acute happens when we eat gluten in this household. So we sometimes eat gluten in this household. My husband loves tortillas. My husband and my son both love breakfast tacos, fish tacos, all the tacos, and the gluten-free option just doesn't cut it for them. They don't love it. And sometimes we do. Sometimes we do that. Sometimes we eat a croissant at our favorite coffee shop. Sometimes we eat a bagel at the new place that just opened up downtown. Like, sometimes we do that. But here's why I have chosen for gluten to not be a huge part of our family's diet, because gluten is this very, very large protein molecule made of a long, complex chain of polypeptides. I know that's a science word, but hang with me, it's important. This very long, complex chain of polypeptides that makes up specifically the gliadin part of the gluten protein, some of those sections can be virtually identical to human tissue, like thyroid tissue, or the beta cells of your pancreas, which is what makes insulin, or some parts of brain, neurological tissue. So when you have sections of this gluten polypeptide chain that look exactly to your body like sections of thyroid tissue or pancreas tissue or brain tissue, then we have a situation that's called molecular mimicry. So this large, complex chain of polypeptides that the body does not always super recognize because it is such a huge protein molecule and fairly novel, then it can get flagged by the immune system. That means that the next time the immune system senses that same chain, it's been flagged, so it'll recognize it and mount an attack the following time. That's how we become immune to things. That's how our immune system works to protect us. The problem is if it flags this portion of the gliadin protein and it happens to look identical to this portion of your thyroid tissue, now your own cells can start attacking your thyroid, and we get into a situation that is called autoimmunity. Auto meaning self. Your immune system is attacking yourself. And this can happen, like I said, in the beta cells of the pancreas, and that would lead to a type 1 diabetic situation where the body is attacking its own pancreas to the point to where it can no longer produce its own insulin and you become an insulin-dependent type 1 diabetic. It can happen in the thyroid. And when those cells are constantly being attacked, then we can end up going down the road towards autoimmune thyroiditis, which is also called Hashimoto's, something that tons of women are being diagnosed with these days. Any number of things can happen if the immune system were to start attacking brain neurological tissue. That's when we can start experiencing symptoms of depression, anxiety, early onset dementia, ADHD, maybe even symptoms of bipolar disorder. Again, I am not saying that if a person experiences any of those things that it is due to gluten. I am saying it's entirely possible that gluten exposure exacerbates some of those things, potentially makes them worse. And there is enough literature out there and enough anecdotal evidence of people getting better when removing it from their diet that it's worth experimenting with. So molecular mimicry is one problem with the gluten protein. Another problem is its effect on gut permeability. There's a lining or a barrier on the outside of your small intestine that keeps things from having access to your bloodstream that could potentially be dangerous for you until they've been broken down all the way and digested fully. So it should have very, very tight junctions that only allow certain things through at certain sizes. And so one of the problems with gluten is that it has the particular ability to loosen those tight junctions. It can increase intestinal permeability. So that means that things that are not fully digested, pathogens that have not been fully neutralized by your gut bacteria, or further upstream, your stomach acid didn't kill them like it was supposed to because you're stressed to high heavens and you don't have enough stomach acid, whatever the case may be, things that are not supposed to get through those tight junctions can get through. And once they're in your bloodstream, they have access to your whole entire body, every tissue and cell in the rest of your body. So loosening those tight junctions is really not something that we want. Gluten has the ability to do that. And when that happens over and over and over time, then that can create just overall gut inflammation, intestinal inflammation, which further restricts your ability to absorb the micronutrients from your food. That's one of the small intestine's primary jobs. So that's how we can end up with tooth decay and stress fractures and osteoporosis and iron deficiency, anemia. That's how we can end up with some of those symptoms of malabsorption, is because the junctions have been loosened in the intestine, and so all the nutrients are not getting absorbed the way that they're supposed to. So all this is to say, my family chooses to stay away from gluten most of the time, except for some occasional treats that we choose. But we also don't have anything that would particularly make us think like, oh, every time I eat this, I have this symptom. None of the four of us actually have anything like chronic that we're trying to heal from. If there was something that was happening to one of us every single day or like over a span of years, then I would absolutely look to pulling gluten out. Maybe other things too, maybe dairy, maybe corn, maybe soy, sugar, a variety of other things could be causing or contributing to that symptom, and I would look at those on their own, but gluten is the first place I would start. There is enough evidence, both scientific and anecdotal, that people get better when they take it out, that it is absolutely worth trying. So that's my spiel on gluten this week. These are exactly the kinds of things that I love teaching and that I will be putting in my new digital course that is launching in January of 2021. I'm taking everything that I put into my one-on-one coaching sessions in my private practice and putting it into a format that you can access anytime, anywhere, and pairing it with a community of like-minded women going after their own health and lifestyle goals. Because as we all know, a rising tide lifts all boats. The material falls under three main pillars: mindset, function, and form. So we're gonna talk about body image and the psychology of food and breaking up with diet culture and all those things. And then we're also gonna talk about how your body actually functions, blood sugar handling and hormone balance and all those fascinating things that will help you make your own decisions for the rest of your life. And then we'll also talk about form, how to optimize your choices and your lifestyle habits so that you can get your body to look and perform and feel exactly the way you want it to. So if you liked this video, I want you to do two things. Number one, I would love for you to engage with it. Please like it, leave a comment, let me know if you have any questions. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. And then number two, sign up for updates on that course that's launching in January if that sounds interesting to you. Just shoot me an email, meg@meghandorman.com, and all you have to do is say, I'm interested. You'll be in the loop as it finishes development throughout the rest of 2020 and the first to know when the doors are open. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next week.